Hello, welcome to the Student Voter Registration Day 2018 Facilitators Training. In today's training, we will walk through SVRD roles and responsibilities, SVRD Day at a glance, how to report numbers, SVRD tools and resources, the SVRD presentation slides, and how to conduct nonpartisan voter registration. SVRD is a single-day program that educates New York City students about the importance of voting and civic engagement and gives students the opportunity to register to vote. This year, SVRD will take place on Monday, May 21st. Times will vary by school throughout the day, but will not go beyond the school day, generally 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. You will be expected to arrive at least 1 hour before your first presentation. The SVRD 2018 Planning Coalition consists of NYC Votes, the New York City Department of Education, the Office of the Mayor, New York Immigration Coalition, New York City Council, and Democracy NYC. Let's start by taking a look at why registering students to vote is so important. Voter turnout in New York is very low. In the 2016 presidential election, New York ranked 41st out of the 50 states for overall voter turnout. Youth voting is low nationwide. In the 2016 presidential election, national youth voter turnout was just 50%. And in the 2017 New York City mayoral election, turnout among youth voters was only 13.5%. We know that it is not enough to simply get students registered, but that we have to help remove barriers to voting. In order to make SVRD a success, the day should be treated as a coming-of-age celebration for the students. Many students would have seen this programming take place when they were underclassmen, so it should feel like this is a special event for them now that they are seniors. To do this, facilitators should be enthusiastic about the accomplishments of the students, emphasize how exciting it is that we get to engage these young people through voting. We recommend you include popular music and hand out plenty of SVRD swag. There are many different roles you might be taking on as a part of SVRD. Each role has its own set of responsibilities, so you want to make sure you are clear on your specific role. You might be a facilitator or lead of a community-based organization, a school SVRD lead, or a volunteer, either with a community-based organization or a general volunteer. You are likely to have questions come up as you plan for SVRD, so it's important to know who your main contact is. If you are a community-based organization's lead, your main contact is NYC Votes. If you are a community-based organization's facilitator or volunteer, your main contact will be the organization's lead. If you are a school SVRD lead, your main contact will be the lead of the organization your school is matched with. And if you are a general volunteer who is unaffiliated with a matched organization, your main contact will be your assigned school's SVRD lead. Community-based organizations will be entirely responsible for conducting SVRD at their school. This means that CBOs are responsible for ensuring all elements of SVRD go smoothly, including communicating with the school lead, managing guest speakers, setting up for the event, delivering the curriculum, registering the students, reporting the numbers, returning the banner to their school, and submitting all completed registration forms and pledges to NYC Votes. Every school must have a school lead who will be responsible for ensuring that your school is prepared to accommodate SVRD by communicating with your assigned CBO, planning the location and coordinating with teachers and staff, making sure that all eligible students are in the right space on the day of, storing your SVRD banner in your school, and communicating with the DOE regarding SVRD. Regardless of whether you are a volunteer with an organization or a general volunteer who signed up through the link, you will have a similar role on the day of SVRD. This will consist of coordinating with the CBO or school lead to make sure you know ahead of time where you need to be and when, setting up for SVRD, helping students fill out forms, handing out SVRD swag, collecting forms from students and giving them the I registered to vote stickers, making sure completed forms get back to the right person, and then cleaning up after SVRD. Let's take a look now at what the day of SVRD should look like. We encourage schools to host SVRD in an assembly setting. However, some schools may choose to have teachers facilitate SVRD within the classroom. Schools might also have CBO staff facilitate SVRD within the classrooms. Volunteers and CBO staff are expected to arrive at their assigned school 1 hour before start time to begin setting up. Start times will vary by school, so make sure to know what time you will start at your school. This is a sample of how you can set up an auditorium for SVRD. All schools will have an SVRD banner, which should be set up in a visible area. We recommend that you decorate the space with balloons and streamers, and also that you have music playing as the students enter. Registration forms should be placed on seats before students arrive, or the volunteers and support staff should be at entrances handing them out to students as they enter. The format of the presentation will start with the facilitator opening with the welcome and introduction. If there is a guest speaker, please consider when they will speak ahead of time. Facilitators should run through the SVRD presentation. Please make sure to have at least 10 to 15 minutes to register students at the end of the presentation. Please note that while students are registering, volunteers and support staff should be helping students as needed. Students should then be instructed to turn in forms on the way out of the auditorium. Volunteers and support staff should be lining the exits to collect these forms and to check and make sure that they are correctly filled out. Facilitators should also make sure to give out SVRD swag throughout the presentation. During the presentation, volunteers and staff should look for students who do not have forms to fill out, need a pin, or have any questions, and should give out candy and prizes to students who participate. Following the presentation, the volunteers and staff should collect the forms and review each voter registration form to ensure that all required fields are filled out, that it is legible, and that it is signed and dated. As they collect the forms, they should hand out "I registered to vote" stickers and answer any questions students might have. At the end of the presentation, it is important that these volunteers collect all voter registration forms and pledges and return them to the CBO lead or school lead. We do ask that all schools and CBOs report the total numbers they've collected. We will do this by sending out a Google form. The form must be filled out by 7 p.m. on May 21st. All funded CBOs will be required to submit a final report and evaluation, which will be sent out post-SVRD. All schools and volunteers will also be asked to evaluate the program. This will ensure that we can continue to improve SVRD in future years. Let's take a look at some things that you should make sure to know before SVRD. The first is, who is your school's SVRD lead? Whether you're a teacher, a volunteer, or a CBO, this is going to be the person you can coordinate with to decide the location and prepare technology and decorating, to collect registration forms and who is going to be responsible for dropping them off, to get clearance to enter the school for CBO staff and volunteers, to discuss logistics regarding guest speakers, and for getting posters up in your school prior to SVRD. Also make sure to know if you will have a guest speaker at your school. You will need to coordinate with the school and the speaker, and this will affect the amount of time you have for your presentation. Set up a plan beforehand of who is responsible for what the day of. If you're a CBO, define your roles ahead of time. If the teachers are facilitating SVRD at your school, make sure to know if you have volunteers to help and who is in charge of coordinating them. This should be your school staff lead. Finally, make sure to know who at your school is responsible for reporting the total number of registration forms and for making sure they get to the messenger. This is vital because the deadline to register to vote for the June 26th primary is June 1st. So we need to have all forms processed as early as possible. Let's go over some registrations, do's and don'ts for nonpartisan voter registration. Do remind students that they must be registered 25 days before an election in order to vote. Do offer to help the applicant fill out the registration form. You may fill out a person's application form for them if they need help, except for the signature and the date. Let the applicant know that they will receive a confirmation from the Board of Elections in 3 to 6 weeks. Let the applicant know voter forms are available in English, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and Bengali. And inform the students that they can choose to fill out the optional organ donor card attached to their form. What not to do. Do not influence an applicant's party enrollment choice. Do not make statements supporting or opposing a political candidate, party, or PAC. And do not sign any voter registration form other than your own. We are providing several toolkits and materials to help you with your SVRD programming. The toolkit includes the SVRD Resource Guide, the SVRD Presentation Slides, the SVRD Social Media Guidelines and Graphics, and the SVRD Online Training. All schools will have some materials delivered directly to their school. These materials include voter registration forms, civic engagement pledges, SVRD buttons, I registered to vote stickers, and an SVRD banner. CBOs will also be given pens, wristbands, candy, and t-shirts for the facilitators. We will now go through the SVRD Resource Guide. This resource guide is designed to help teachers and facilitators register students to vote and understand the value of voting and civic engagement through activities and discussion questions. The guide gives instructions for each activity and should be used alongside the presentation slides, which will be provided. You can find the resource guide at our website, nyccfb.info. The resource guide helps you to tailor your presentation. Every presentation must cover Activity 1, which is registering students to vote, and Activity 6, which is becoming civically engaged. Activities 2, 3, 4, and 5 will help students to understand the importance of voting. To fit the time that you have, you should choose one or more, if time permits, of these activities to go through before registering students to vote. Activity 7, the trivia recap, is also optional. When tailoring your presentation, make sure to consider how much time you will have for the activities. Most often, you will have just one class period to speak with the students. That is about 40 minutes. If you have a guest speaker, you will have less time for your presentation. So be deliberate with your planning so that you can make sure every student has time to fill out the registration form before the bell rings. The SVRD presentation PowerPoint includes slides for every activity. The activity number associated with each slide is clearly indicated in the lower right-hand corner. So for the activities that you will not be covering, please skip through the corresponding slides during your presentation. The resource guide includes an introduction, how to use this resource guide, and descriptions of activities 1 through 7, materials, helpful links, how to stay connected, and acknowledgments. The activities include a welcome and introduction, and also an icebreaker. Activity 1 is registering students to vote. Activity 2, your impact on your community. Activity 3, so why does voting matter? Activity 4, what are some reasons people don't vote? Activity 5, how the issues affect you. Activity 6, becoming civically engaged. And Activity 7, trivia recap. The materials included in the SVRD Resource Guide include a voter FAQ, voter vocabulary, elected officials' responsibilities and duties, which elected official do I need for my issue, how do I contact my elected officials, how to reach the NYC Board of Elections offices, a guide to the New York State voter registration form, and a sample absentee ballot. To prepare for your presentation, familiarize yourself with the resource guide, including the voter FAQ, voter vocabulary, and the guide to the New York State voter registration form. Decide which activities you will include and read through those sections of the guide thoroughly. Remember to consider guest speakers in planning your presentation. In some cases, you might have a speaker who is coming for one presentation at your school, but not the others. You should plan accordingly. We will now go through the SVRD presentation slides. Please note that these are student-facing slides meant to aid you in your presentation. This is the welcome slide where you will introduce yourself and your organization. This slide corresponds with an icebreaker described in the resource guide. This slide is for you to go over the goals and expectations for Student Voter Registration Day. There are 2 quotes in this presentation, which you can ask the students to read and ask them to reflect on what they mean to them. Ask the students to consider what it means now that they will be 18. Of course, one responsibility and privilege they get is to vote. If you would like, you can connect a lot of the recent energy that we've seen amongst young people with voting. Activity 2 is your impact on your community. Here, we ask students to consider the communities that they are a part of and what kind of influence they have on those communities. As a note, the resource guide walks through each activity in detail. Activity 3 is why voting matters. This activity walks through the history of voting rights in the United States, as well as some voter turnout statistics. Activity 4 is reasons why people might not vote. This activity allows us to address barriers that might prevent people from voting. Activity 5 is issues that matter to us. This activity digs into issues that we know matter to young people and talks about how voting can influence those issues. Activity 7 is trivia fun. Activity 1 is registering students to vote. This activity has several parts. The first part is upcoming elections. It's important to let the students know that we will have 3 elections in New York this year. Please note, the state primary election is on a Thursday this year instead of the usual Tuesday. It's vital that we make sure only eligible students register to vote. Please use this language to ensure that students know they must be a fully naturalized citizen in order to vote. We will now walk through the voter registration form. I will indicate which areas must be filled out. Section 1, are you a citizen of the U.S., must be filled out for the form to be valid, and the student must be a citizen in order to register. Section 2 also must be filled out for the form to be valid. You may register to vote at age 17, as long as you will be 18 by the end of the year. You may only vote in an election if you are 18 on Election Day. Please note your name must match the name on your ID. Writing your phone number and/or email, while not required, allows the Board of Elections to contact you if there are any problems with your registration form. Sections 3 and 4 are required. Sections 5, 6, and 7 are not. Please make sure the students write legibly. Write the address where you live in box 8. To receive mail at a different address, write it in box 9. Section 8 is required, and Section 9 is required if you receive mail at a different address. If a student is in temporary housing, they can write a location where they can be found as the address where they live. They can write an address of a shelter, a P.O. box, or a family member's address as the address where they receive mail. This is where the voter card will be sent and where they're assigned poll site according to the address where you live. Most students will not need to fill out the voting history or voting information that has changed, as this will be the first time they have registered to vote. Students should provide either a New York State ID number or the last 4 digits of their Social Security. If they do not have either, they can check the 3rd box, which will mean that the first time they vote, you'll need to present one of the following forms of identification at a poll site: a photo ID or proof of address, such as an electric or gas bill that shows their name and address. Please note that a New York City ID does not count. Students can choose one of the parties listed, write in the name of a party, or choose not to enroll in any party. Please let the students know that they must enroll in one of the listed parties in order to vote in that party's primary election. Please note that the students may change their party enrollment by completing this form before the general election registration deadline, but the change will not take effect until the following year. It is important as you register students to vote that you do not influence their party selection. Many of your students will be going off to college and will need to vote by absentee ballot. They can check in section 15, I need to apply for an absentee ballot, and will be mailed this application. If they will be 18 by election day, they can also check, I would like to be an election day worker. Please have the students read the terms of the affidavit carefully and then have them sign and date to validate their form. As the students finish registering to vote, congratulate them and inform them that we will send their registration form to the Board of Elections for them. Remind them that if they will be 18 on or before June 26th, they'll be able to vote in the upcoming federal primary on June 26th. Inform students that they will receive a voter confirmation card with their poll site location in the mail in 3 to 6 weeks. If they do not receive this card, they can contact the borough's Board of Elections office, available in the SVRD resource guide, or visit voting.nyc to check their registration status and to find their poll site. Remind them that they do not need to present this voter confirmation card in order to vote. Activity 6 is how to get civically engaged. Each of these steps has a more thorough description in the SVRD resource guide. Please go over these with your students so that they know that if they can't vote or if they want to do more than voting, there are other options. All students will have the opportunity to pledge to be civically engaged. These pledges will be delivered directly to your schools. Students are welcomed to take a selfie of their I registered to vote sticker and send it to us at NYC Votes with the hashtag SVRD. Please note some schools will not allow students to have phones. Students can also sign up for updates about elections and voting by texting NYC Votes to 1-917-979-6377. This ends the SVRD presentation slides, which we will be providing for you to use for your presentation. Thank you for joining us for the 2018 Student Voter Registration Day Facilitators Training. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact Summer Griffin at sgriffin@nyccfb.info or by phone at 212-409-1844. Thank you all very much for participating in SVRD.